Years ago, when I was in formation, I lived in a rather large house. It was an old monastery, and deep in the basement, there was a gym of sorts. I call it that roughly. It was a collection of rusted up equipment that people had donated over the century. And I would go down there and use it. And hanging up on the wall, I can only imagine it was done by somebody who was in formation many years ago. Right where you would be working out and looking, there was a crucifix. And right underneath it were inscribed the prophetic words, "No pain, no gain." It was funny, but yet also true, a great motivator. As you're in there working, it's like, well, if Jesus can do it, I'm sure I can lift this weight. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to lose weight before or try to get in shape. I've done it many times and still trying. But when you do that, inevitably, the world starts to offer you all kinds of solutions. You probably see it on TV all the time. There's always some new pill that if you take this, it'll just burn the fat right away. Some new drink that you drink, some new medication, some new program that's going to make it easy for you to lose the weight. But after a while, we know the truth, don't we? The only way that you're going to lose the weight is if you burn more than you eat. After years of maybe overeating, a little gluttony, a little laziness, the only remedy for it is a little bit of fasting, a little bit of hard work, making up for all of those years spent in excess. The only remedy for too much is to cut back. Whenever we find ourselves groping around in a dark room, we can't see, what is the first thing that we do? We grope around for the light, right? Because the only thing that will dispel the darkness is light. When we find ourselves getting closer to the winter months and it gets cold outside, and that bitter cold air begins to chill us to the bone, what is better than huddling around a fire? When we are cold, we seek the fire. Or when we find ourselves in the midst of the heat of an August summer day, and we are just oppressed by the heat, and it just saps the life out of us, there is nothing sweeter than an ice-cold drink of water. The only remedy for darkness is light. The only remedy for cold is warmth. The only remedy for being too hot is cold. The remedy for what ails us is often its opposite. Today we celebrate the feast of the Exaltation of the cross, the medicine for us, God's gift to the world to undo the sickness that the world has been plagued with. And what is the sickness of the world? What is at the heart of our sin that God came to overthrow? Let us go back to the very beginning. How did sin first enter into the world? Well, we read in Genesis, what was the first great sin our ancestors, Adam and Eve, committed? Staring at the tree, the serpent said to Eve, "Eat of this fruit, and your eyes will be open, and you will become like God. For you will know as God knows." The very first sin of our ancestors was to gaze up into the heavens and to dare to climb the ladder up into the sky. It was the pride of our ancestors to overthrow and topple the kingdom of God and make ourselves God. to rise above, to become gods ourselves. In the very first generation of our first parents, what was the sin of their children? Cain and Abel. The very first sin of that very first generation was envy. As Cain looked on upon Abel and saw that his sacrifice was favor over his own, he was enraged with a jealousy that was more than just jealousy, but was envy, wanting to tear down his brother. He did not want God's favor to rest on another. He wanted it to rest on himself. And so, overcome with envy, the very first sin of the very first naturally born generation was murder. Wanting to tear someone's life away, to build oneself up. What is the remedy for this kind of illness? If human beings are to seek to make themselves a god and rise above their station, to crawl and climb and try to reach the heights of heaven, the only remedy is for God to descend that ladder and to become one of us. If man wishes to become a god, then God will become a man. What is the remedy for the sin of envy, of wanting to tear down our sister and brother, to lift ourselves up? It is to come and to give everything you have for those that you love. What is the remedy for murder? To sacrifice your very life for the world. You see, sisters and brothers, today, on this feast of the exaltation of the cross, we celebrate the great medicine for the world. In the ancient world, you'll often see people holding something that looks like a globe, and right on top of it is a cross, representing that the cross has now become the very center of the world. Not in a geographical sense, but in a spiritual sense. In the mind of God, the cross is the very moment in which all of salvation history is turned upside down. As the world was continuing to fall away into sin, God enters into the world and turns it on its head. He comes and says, if the world wants to become a god, God will become part of the world. If the world wants to tear down, I will build up. If the world wants to murder, wants violence, if the world wants to seek its own power, then I will give my very life for the world. If the world wants to hold up the sword, then I will turn it upside down and turn it into the cross. I will turn it into love. This is what we celebrate. That God has given us the great and awesome medicine for our soul. Sisters and brothers, this is what we celebrate. This is the only thing that matters. And as we live in the world today, it seems that the world has not got the message. Let us be transformed by it. When the world offers us condemnation, let us offer mercy. When it seeks to strike us down, let us hold out our hands. When it seeks to hate and to tear us down, let us love. For the world has been torn apart, and Christ has come to put it together again. He has turned it upside down. So let us come before this altar once more and thank God for the great gift of this medicine, and pray that we be transformed by it so that we can share it with a world that desperately needs it.